Ravi, go ahead, come in, and you're going to talk about 5 ways to bootstrap your business, I bet.
I think it's seven, but close, yeah. So one of my partners is actually supposed to be speaking, Hirsch. He's the CEO of Maker Square. I'm the CEO, previously was the COO of Maker Square. He tagged me in, so I'm subbing for him, so bear with me here. But today I'm going to be talking about 7 tips to bootstrapping your business. To give you some background on myself, I previously was the Chief Operating Officer at Maker Square, which is a software immersion program in town. We have campuses in Austin, San Francisco, LA, and New York. And I left about a year ago to start a new company called Rover Pass, which is kayak for campgrounds. We make it easy to find a place to go camping for you. So the big question is, what kind of a business can actually be bootstrapped? And there's really a wide spectrum of businesses that can be bootstrapped, but typically what it comes down to is your founding team. If you have a business that requires a lot of upfront R&D, like a tech company, you're going to need more engineering heavy focus on your founding team. If you have a business that's in the marketing space, you probably need more marketing people. Typically what I've found in bootstrap businesses is that they're in the services industry. They're services, so like you contract somebody to build a website for you, you contract somebody to market for you, or businesses like that. I'm going to walk you through our founding story and what strengths and weaknesses we had on our team when we started Maker Square, which was a bootstrapped company. So my background before Maker Square was I helped start a music festival here in town called Euphoria Fest, and I had a few other smaller ventures in college, from T-shirt printing to you name it. I tried everything. And so my background was just in entrepreneurship in general. Hirsch, one of my partners, graduated, did Teach for America, and then he was a biomedical engineer at St. Louis University, and he was in the first class of General Assembly, which is another software engineering coding program. So he had teaching background, and he was a customer of the program that we wanted, a similar type of program that we wanted to build. Shazan, one of the other partners, was a software engineer at Facebook, Intel, and AMD. And so he had a really deep technical understanding of what we needed to teach our students. And Sean was an accountant turned software engineer who went through the first class of another company similar to ours in Chicago called the Starter League. So he also had a deep understanding of what a student actually wants when they're going through a program. So the biggest thing demonstrated by our founding team was that you have to be your own customer to start a bootstrapped company. You have to understand the problem so intimately that you're actually just solving the problem for yourself. And so the problem was, what the heck did I even learn in college? All this fluff doesn't get me a job. I think computer science would actually get me a job, and it's high in demand. The other problem was that we actually created our own problem. When we were starting the program, we didn't know how to recruit for software engineers. There's such a shortage of them, and we thought to ourselves, well, probably every other company that wants a software engineer has the problem. So how do we solve that for the company? So we set out to build a program. And the next tip that I can offer is that the customers are your investors. Every business has investors, no matter which way you cut it. Money's got to come in some way, and it needs to be spent on something. In a bootstrap business, typically, your customers are your investors. So they're the ones handing you the checks to then do whatever it is that you do. And typically, if you can't get a customer to pay you up front, you might not have the right product market fit, which means that they may not want your services, and you may need to pivot around before you can figure out what exactly it is that they want.
But question, how do you meet their expectations? Because they might want your services, but in their mind, they want your service right now. And if you're asking for money up front, it might take you weeks, it might take you months, so many roadblocks that you have to pass.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the product that you're building. So, for example, our product was a school, which is a brick and mortar location. So all we needed to do was put up a website and tell everybody we're teaching this class. It doesn't really act, in our case, it didn't actually matter if we had the curriculum or anything before we even took the money. They just had to trust us to take the money and know that we're going to do the right thing with it. And so it really is about building trust and rapport with your customers, because typically you're kind of faking it till you make it. You know, you are giving people the impression that you are going to execute really well. And businesses that are bootstrapped, their execution is nearly perfect. Not saying that we didn't have our hiccups, but you know, you have to do what you say you're going to do, and it's about expectations. So your customers, the fourth tip is that your customers really are your marketing team. So what we did early on was we wanted to create the appearance that we were being backed by a lot of big tech companies in town. So we networked around, got introductions to whoever we needed to. We had introductions to uship.com, we had introductions to WP Engine, Capital Factory, Austin on Rails, and all we did was we asked them, hey guys, will you let us put your logo on our website, and will you simply just endorse us? Will you tell people, hey, these guys are, you know, they know what they're doing? And we got them to agree. And so we were able to put their logos on our website, which built credibility for our brand. The other thing is, once we actually had the students, we gave everybody a $2,000 discount for referring a friend to us. So at first our tuition was $8,000. And if they referred a friend to us for class number 2, we gave them $2,000 back. The other thing is, if you have a great product, word of mouth marketing is going to trump all other types of marketing that you can do. I can't tell you how many students have told their cousins, their uncles, their parents that have come back through our program. So like I mentioned in tip 4, rally the community. Now, in certain instances, when you're trying to build that credibility, you have to actually give a carrot. So what we did is we gave the carrot of stock in our business to these influential tech leaders. So Josh Baer from Capital Factory, what we found is that anytime Josh Baer would send a tweet about Makersquare, we'd get like 25 applications. So we were like, okay, yeah, we need to give him something to where he keeps on tweeting about us. And that was crucial in our early days because our class is only 28 students large. So if we get 25 applications from one tweet, that's amazing. Damon Klingscales was he's basically the managing director of Austin on Rails. Some of you may or may not know him. But he is the leader of software engineering, software engineering with Ruby on Rails, and we were teaching Ruby on Rails. So if we had his buy-in, then he could advocate for us. And when other engineers in the community asked Damon, hey, who are these guys? Are they legit? Damon could say, yes, they are legit. And then tip 6 and 7, I think I put tip 6 and 7 as 1 because it's so important that you focus on your customers. They're going to tell you what they want. And you have to be able to react really quickly. Rapid iteration mechanisms within your business are the most important thing when you're bootstrapping, because if you screw something up once, they're not going to give you that much leniency to you can't keep screwing things up. So what we did in our first class was every single day we had 3 questions that we'd ask them. And basically we'd ask, how are you feeling? Did you feel like what you learned today was adequate? How can we improve? And that last question, how can we improve? They could actually see us making changes daily based off of their suggestions. The first thing that we noticed was that we were moving way too fast, and we had to completely throw away all the curriculum that we'd built for the last month and start from scratch. And it required we were scrappy early on because we had to be. If we took too long to build curriculum, the students would get pissed and they would quit or ask for their money back. Another thing that we started noticing towards the end of the class was people started kind of worrying about, oh, how am I going to get a job towards the end of class? And we were kind of building the company on the fly as we were teaching it. So they're asking us, what's a technical interview look like? How do I pass an engineer, a seasoned engineer, asking me all these questions? How do I actually get a job? So right then and there, we decided, okay, we need a career services team. And so one of the founders took that over, and he started coaching the students on how to pass technical interviews. He started doing resume prep. We got technical recruiters to come in and help the students craft their resumes. Another interesting thing that we found early on was students that were coming from out of town were worrying about where do they live? How do you find a 12-week lease in Austin in this like booming housing market? So what we did was we rented a house on the east side, furnished it, and just charged them rent on a monthly basis, and it basically just turned into a dormitory. And so now we have dormitories like that in Austin, San Francisco, LA, and New York. And so it really comes down to being able to solve customer problems very quickly. That's really all I've got. If anybody has questions, feedback, yeah.
I was curious because you said you had one extremely technical savvy person software, but the other parts of the group, how did you coalesce to come up with this particular idea? I mean, and make it work? It seems like you didn't know about the subject matter to the extent that.
Yeah, I was not on the.
Or not, or I don't know.
Yeah, I was not on the technical side. I was more so on the operations side. So when it came to handling the finances, dealing with the building, the renovations, the actual software infrastructure that ran the business, I did that part of it. But the actual product, which was the curriculum, was built by Shazan, who is our head of, who's currently.
He's the founder. I mean, I'm just kind of looking. So he's the one that recruited other people with expertise that he didn't have.
We kind of found each other, so we knew each other beforehand. So we were all friends growing up, and you know, with a small team like that, and when you're bootstrapping, you got to know your team very well and know what weaknesses and strengths each other has. So, yeah, I mean, early on, the way the business played out for us is we put up the landing page, collected a bunch of tuition, and we used that money to then go lease a building, get all the IKEA furniture, build it. We actually didn't, I mean, the funniest story is that we didn't get our lease until 6 days before the class started. And for the next 6 days, we just marathoned inside of the building. It's a 5,000 square foot building. We were just sitting there building furniture, like drilling. We had contractors in there for 3 days, just tearing down walls, painting. We were painting, putting up projectors, doing what, I mean, you just do whatever it takes.
So the sustainability, right now it's sustainable. Are you still with this?
No, so we sold the business last year, so
To,
another larger company.
because
It just
want to continue? Or?
it made sense. They had infrastructure that we didn't have.
So you came out ahead. I was curious about the financial resolve here. Just
Yeah, it was a great thing for everybody involved.
In your phase of faking it before you were making it, how exactly did you get people to trust you before you had something concrete they invested in? I mean, what's the magic there?
We wonder the same thing till this day. Funny stories. If you guys know where Brew and Brew is down on the east side, we probably collected tuition from 10 students at Brew and Brew. And honestly, it really comes down to sincerity. They just have to trust you when you shake a hand. They just have to feel like you mean it. It's I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question myself.
did your tuition amount correspond with the actual requirements for the setup? How did you come up with that money in, out, cash, what cost?
So we weren't too, I mean, we were looking at our competitors at the time, right? Everybody was, I think, around 10,000, and we were offering around 6,000 to 8,000, depending on certain like criteria. And so we undercut everybody. The other thing is we were the only people in Austin at the time. Now there's about 7 schools in Austin. So we were first to market, and the market itself was exploding at the time. There's like incredible demand for this one service, and there still is. So all those factors, kind of right time, right place, right
So
people.
those are just coincidental. I'm just looking at the strategy that you developed on this, and those were points that you had anticipated in advance, or did it just happen to be, well, we were lucky?
There's definitely some element of luck to it. It's very, very difficult to find the right people exactly when you need them and have the exact market opportunity that's laid in front of you. A lot of times businesses will either time it too late or time it too early, at which point they kind of pivot around trying to figure out how do we last until the right market opportunity, or did we just miss it entirely? If you tried starting a code school in Austin today, it would be nearly impossible. There's too many players here.
Well, that's why I'm working with senior engineering students, and I try to develop a strategy, a methodology to this. I know bootstrapping is there. So they come up with ideas, and I said, well, is it going to work? I mean, how do you have to do this in your head somehow to come up with, well, will it work or not? And you can say right now, it probably wouldn't work given the resources that you currently would be required. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So you didn't really have a sheet to do this.
If I was to write a sheet, I would look at the competitive landscape. How many competitors do you have in a market? How much capital does it take to get started? What do you actually, if you need a building, how much does that cost you to do it, and how are you going to actually get the money to do it? But I think really it comes down to how much competition is in your space and how much demand there is.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. When you were doing this, it sounds like one of the things you had is you were able to, you didn't have to commit to costs until you had customers. Is that, I'm asking that in the form of a question, was that one of the secrets? So worst case scenario, you go out to the market, there's no customers, okay, go try again. But was that strategic? Did that in fact play out that way, that you really didn't have to rent a building, go to IKEA, do all that stuff until you had paying customers that bought it, so you were able to, use their revenue on the fly instead of spending it up front?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge factor. I mean, it depends on how big you're trying to scale. And to be honest, venture-backed companies do this all the time. They land a contract, get some revenue in, and then raise money off of that contract. It's actually a very common tactic when you're doing any kind of fundraising, whether it's from your students or from institutional investors.
Did you, as a group, did you put in money before? I mean, the founders themselves have a certain, like, well, I'll put $1,000, couple thousand?
We all put in $1,000 to get started, and we spent it all on South by Southwest interactive badges.
Well, just for entertainment or for the purposes of?
We thought something would come out of it, and honestly, there's definitely some good networking opportunities that we got from it. So,
when you look back over this roller coaster journey, what was some of the best parts? What was some of the worst parts?
oh man, the best parts was the day that our first class graduated and the first student got a job. We actually had a student get a job like on the hiring day, like a verbal offer right then and there. So we were like, we made it, we finally did it. Some of the worst parts, oh man, there's a lot. Constantly, we worked nonstop. I mean, we lived together so we started the company out of my parents' house, and then we moved about 6 months later into a 2-bedroom apartment. So then we had like 2 beds right next to each other and a little nightstand and one tiny little apartment. It was fun. All of it was fun. I was starting a company with 3 of my really good buddies. But there's definitely, I don't know if I could do that again. I was like 21 at the time, so but yeah, I don't know any like.
23 right now. So you look very young.
Yeah, I'm still pretty young, but yeah, I don't know if there's anything in particular that was like just stuck out as bad times. I do remember a funny story when we were expanding to San Francisco. I was really stressed out because we were renovating it. This is dumb, but I was really stressed out because we were renovating our office, and I had to place an order for $30,000 worth of carpet. And I was like, what if I picked the wrong carpet color and everybody hates me for it? That decision was on me. So.
Can you just score the floors? I mean, I don't know, but tiles, that's a lot of carpet. Really. Question, how long was it before, I mean, you started and you went into liquidity? What was the time? How long was that?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty short.
Yeah, it's definitely short.
Standard.
Yeah, it's definitely short from an investment
And
perspective.
did you, like, people want to stay together and start another startup, or?
Oh yeah.
You have another?
We're trying to figure out how to make it happen right now, but we're all kind of tied up at the moment. So
And you're not sick of each other. You still want to work together.
no, we know we can together we can figure anything out. So
So I know Makersquare is a JavaScript coding school, but you said initially it was Ruby on Rails. So could you kind of go into when that transition happened, why, and kind of dive into the explanation from like a financial explanation?
yeah, so when we started, Ruby on Rails was the de facto language. That's what all the other schools in the market were doing. And we started seeing a shift in hiring. So we were constantly monitoring what people were hiring for. And we started noticing that there's a lot more open positions for JavaScript than there were for Ruby. And so we kind of sat on that for about a year, just kind of thinking about making the switch. And eventually we decided, okay, we have to make the switch. And it was pretty painful because all of our curriculum and everything was geared towards Ruby at the time. And then as we were being acquired, the school or the company that was acquiring us was JavaScript heavy as well. And so we adapted their curriculum, which made the transition much easier. So.
You mentioned the customer issue. So you have a known group of customers. In the situation I'm working with, the engineers, they're trying to create a product, not software, hardware. It's very hard to get people involved. And there was a little bit of a lag to refine the product. Well, it's quite a bit of a lag. We spent over a year to refine the product with our own resources. And then we approached the customers, and actually the customers like it, but unfortunately the users were not the payers. This is a little bit of a challenge we've surmised as of late. We're making product for wheelchairs for the disabled, a demographic that we found not very prosperous. And they're relying on totally different funding situations. So now we have a demand from the ultimate users, but the payers, customer, I don't know how you put it, or it's a different group. We're trying to focus on them now. It's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Healthcare is an interesting market. It's not regulated, or it doesn't really function like most typical supply and demand scenarios. There's not. It has its own economics altogether.
I must admit, I'm at fault on that. I mean, the founder, I wasn't totally cognizant of those issues. So we're straddling right now. But we didn't get ourselves so far into debt that we're beyond hope and even an investor.
Yeah.
On a personal question, I'm looking for a tech co-founder. Can I go to Makersquare, and just like, do you have a section where I can meet people who will be interested in?
Yeah, so we've got a career services team that all they do is place students with people that are either looking to start companies or companies themselves. So you would definitely just want to get in touch with the career services team.
What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the very beginning?
Oh man.
It can be a long list. It's okay.
I actually probably would say that about my second company than I would about this company. No business is the same. You have your own unique problems with every single business that you think you know everything, but there's just no way. And so I had to learn how much it actually costs to build a tech product with the second company versus Makersquare, which didn't really cost that much to build. But when things don't cost that much to build, entrance into your market are there's going to be a lot more. That's why there's 7 schools in Austin now, which is partially our reason for wanting to sell. So, and so, yeah, that's definitely one lesson I've learned. I definitely learned that your founding team is really, really, really important. It's like the core DNA of your business. I think an error we made early on at Makersquare was that we didn't have someone that was very, very focused on marketing, and you can feel that. You could feel that riding into year 2. We knew it, but we couldn't figure it out because no one on the core founding team was focused on marketing.
Getting back to that team development, I've struggled. I've worked with some very gifted professors. You know, I started off this project at the university, but they didn't have the savvy, and it's been challenging finding people, interested parties. I mean, we were fortunate to have a group that kind of coalesced and developed that, but I think that is a very significant challenge that
yeah, I mean, a founding team is very difficult because you have to find people at the right
team. I've noticed that myself, and the students are coming and going. That's part of the problem I've had. I've been trying to work with students continuously, but they graduate and take off. So
yeah.
it's something
Yeah.
to do.
Cool. Any other questions?
When I work with people about getting something going, teams always break up when we get to talking about money and equity and how we divide the share. Did you all just divide everything equally, or did you come to an agreement about contribution and equity?
So I'm under the firm belief that no matter what stage of the business you are, everything should just be divided equally because it's just going to lead to conflict down the line. If you can't trust your founders to do the right thing, then there's something wrong in the founding stages of the DNA. So yeah, we split everything equally, and we had provisions in there for different scenarios. We tried to think of every possible scenario and write it into our operating agreement, and no scenario, I mean, what ended up happening towards the end, like, was not in our operating agreement. You can't account for all these things. You have to innately trust who you're doing business with. So, yeah, I think you should split equity, or you should evenly split equity. I think probably up to the point where you're making any significant amount of revenue, which would probably be like more than $25,000 a month.
So did y'all have any major fights or splits of like, you're not contributing enough, you're goofing off?
No, not really. I think we were all pretty much on the same page. We all started with the same vision. We wanted to do one thing was start really awesome coding school program in Austin, and then after that we all got aligned with starting one in San Francisco and then Los Angeles. So we were pretty much on the same page most of the time. Obviously with 4 founders, you're gonna have some arguments and disagreements on stuff, but you know, that was a good thing, is we'd been friends since we were like 4 years old. Three of the 4 of us were. And then one of them was my fraternity brother in college. So we'd known each other for a long time.
What type of corporate structure did you establish?
We're an LLC.
An LLC.
Yeah.
You know, to your point, I think when it comes to the equity piece, I think it requires everybody to have a lot of humility. I mean, humility is I know Ravi would say, I think it is an oft undermentioned asset in a partnership. You know, you got to realize that, you know, your stuff stinks too. You know, and at the end of the day, if you sell the business and you make 7 million versus 10 million, I mean, really, does it matter? I mean, seriously, if you sell the business for $50 million, you know, or $20 million, and you walk away with 7 million versus 10 million, are you really going to be that mad at yourself? Are you going to be mad? Or are you going to be angry that you argued over that 3 million? How much money can you spend?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're really just trying to build something that's of some kind of value. So everybody's going to ride along, and at some point, you're going to hit a point where, like, it's clear that this person is a little bit more valuable than the other person, And at that point, you figure it out as a team.
At the beginning, did you discuss and agree what the exit strategy would be? Or were you just so busy building a company, you didn't really talk about,
We
we're gonna
had-
be bought by Virginia School of No Good Technology?
We had no clue what our exit strategy was. We didn't even, we had no exit strategy at all. We were looking to build a business that we could live a good, comfortable life with, and then it kind of just worked out, and we got a deal that we wanted, so we took it.
That's a good point. If your goal in building a business is to sell it, you might not have the right goal. If selling is, if your why is profit, and profit is not a reason, it's a result.
So were you approached, or did you approach someone else to purchase, I mean, how'd that work?
It's
out?
a long courting process. It's like we met them in the first year that we started, and then we stayed in touch kind of for the next 2 years, and then eventually they approached us, and then we said no for a little while, then we said yes, and it was like one of those things.
How important was your ability to network with people in this overall process?
So that's a really good question, and I probably should have made that a tip. Finding a really good advisory board of people. So we had Josh Bayer, Damon Klingscales, Jay Manicum from UShip, which is another huge venture-backed company. And we had, I think that was our main advisory board, but they served exactly what we needed them to do, which is introduce us to the right people within the right networks to get what we needed. It became less valuable kind of as we started expanding out to San Francisco and LA. But early on, networking was the absolute most critical thing. We were at every single meetup you could think of, just handing out business cards and throwing around flyers. We went to every coffee shop in Austin and put up a Maker Square flyer. We were everywhere. So it's definitely important.
So you were all participants in the marketing, I mean, you were a full participation, you weren't just, one person just didn't do one thing.
I mean, in a startup, you have to be a Swiss Army knife. You have to be able to really, I honestly, aside from engineering, we all probably could have just done each other's jobs. Shazan was the one person that had a specific skill set that we absolutely needed.
As you expanded to other cities, did you see that you had to slightly modify or customize or localize anything?
Yes, definitely. So in Austin, the marketing strategy so first of all, in Austin, we were the first school. In San Francisco, we were like the 7th. So in retrospect, I don't know why we did this, but we went from a market that had no competition to the most competitive market in the country. And so that year was quite the roller coaster. We definitely had to change our marketing strategy. We went even more guerrilla than we did in Austin. And we would get on LinkedIn and literally just message every single technical recruiter in all of San Francisco and just tell them, hey, we've got this program. If you guys have any candidates that might need our help, send them our way and we'll give you $1,000. We definitely canvassed coffee shops in San Francisco. We tried partnering with anybody that would want to partner with us to do some cross promotions. We launched women's scholarships for, as an underrepresented minority in tech. We launched African American scholarships. We did literally everything possible to get traction in San Francisco. It was much more difficult.
How did you know you were successful, say, in San Francisco? How did you measure?
Our P&L said we were.
Money in the bank.
So you were just making a profit after a while, it was good.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we did good, yeah.
You mentioned, what did you establish as your criteria? I mean, everybody's making just a salary. Did you, like, for example, in my case, if I make a teacher's salary every, in one, I worked out the math, I can make one device it takes me about 8 hours, and I make teacher salary for a week. That's my criteria. So you do something like that?
Not really. I mean, it was just whatever we're comfortable with. You know, our salaries fluctuated like constantly, like every week it changed. So we just took whatever we could afford to take from the company, and that's what we've got.
Oh, so it wasn't a real salary, then it was just, okay.
Early on, it wasn't a real salary. Probably for the first year, it was kind of a 1 month we took something and another month we didn't, and then like we might have to reverse that and then put some money back in, and so it was kind of a little crazy the first year, but it was good still.
And you had families?
No families. That's definitely an advantage.
Yeah.
But you had parents.
We had parents, but they didn't give us
Those are called
anything.
angel investors, right? Guys, we can be here all night.
That's fine.
Any other questions? Ravi, thanks so much
Yeah.
for sharing your
Thanks.
experience with us.